Right, I will kick off straight away with you, Greg, if that's okay. As Jace mentioned, IKEA is opening on one of the most iconic buildings in the West End, on Oxford Street. Do you think flagship businesses such as IKEA have a responsibility to lead the way to create sustainable shopping destinations?
Thank you, Oliver, and a huge welcome to everyone and to the other panellists as well. At IKEA, our vision is to create a better life for the many people. The way in which we do this is we have three key roads: affordability, accessibility, and to become people and planet positive. So what do we really mean when we look into something along the lines of accessibility? Well, accessibility can be many things. It can be how our co-workers travel to and from our stores. It can be how our customers shop and kind of utilize IKEA's range and services. And it can be our delivery network as well. By the end of 2025, all of our home deliveries will be made by electric vehicles. One of many, many different examples, I think, around accessibility. We've opened recently a city centre store in Hammersmith, and we've also opened our first shopping centre, Livat, also in Hammersmith as well. And as you say, Oxford Street will be opening towards the end of 2023. We're very, very, very excited to be coming to Oxford Street, and lots of plans. But particularly looking at people and planet positive, which isn't just one of our three roads, but one of our core values as well. We can break this down into kind of four key areas. So the first one is, how do we enable and inspire the many people, 1 billion people around the world, to live a more healthy and sustainable life, both through our range, through our services, through almost everything that we do. The second one is, how do we transform to become a circular organisation? How do we prolong the life of products and materials? How do we offer new services? You may have seen our buyback and resell service that was launched during the pandemic. But there's a whole raft of other business models and services that we're changing as well. Our entire range will be made from recycled or regenerative materials again by 2030. And 2030 is where we're heading. It's where our main focus is. We have to act now. So becoming climate positive by 2030, utilising science-based targets, is a really, really key part of our people and planet positive strategy overall. And we link this into a balanced scorecard approach as well, in terms of how we measure success with our climate footprint. And last but not least is around becoming, ensuring that society becomes more fair and inclusive as well. So how do we work both with our co-workers across our supply chain and value chain, but then also in communities as well, to properly democratise sustainability and create that fair and inclusive society. We'll be investing £1 billion into London. You may have read also about the new distribution centre being developed over in Dartford as well. And there'll be many other, I'm sure, exciting new ventures going on into London between now and 2030.
Fantastic. Thanks, Greg. Lots of very ambitious targets there. We'd love to discuss those in more detail as we go on. Ian, with the most variety in customer shopping offering, from food and beverages to wellness, and with a reliance on international travel, hotels arguably have a bigger challenge in operating sustainably. How is Marriott working with customers and partners to create a more sustainable visitor journey and experience? And what changes are Marriott Hotels making to create a more sustainable offer for visitors and business clients?
Great question. Thanks very much. And good morning, everybody. And I'd just like to also say how great it is to see everybody back here, not just because you're giving us some business today, but it is truly wonderful to get back to these sort of meetings. And I want to touch on this a little bit in my answer as well, in terms of where the future is going. So yeah, we are, an enormous hotel company. We've got something like nearly 8,000 hotels around the world. And we're in hospitality, we do rely on travel. I think if I look at international travel, what I find interesting is some of the trends now. And I was talking to some guests in our lobby this morning who were checking out. And they were a family that had come over from the States. And they'd been over here on leisure. And they'd been over here for over 3 weeks. So yes, they flew over here. But they were very much not just sort of coming in just to see us. They were off on the grand tour of Europe. They were getting Eurostar over to Paris, leaving us and all that. And we find increasingly with customers, they mix business and pleasure, and they extend their stays. So we find in this hotel a lot of stays are getting longer and longer, which means they're not traveling as much. Also, I think if we look at business, during the pandemic, obviously we, like all other hotels, were closed. We couldn't do meetings and all of that, and there was this vast increase in Teams, Zoom meetings and all of that. And we did a lot of virtual meetings from here. We set up a hybrid studio so people could still sort of communicate around the world. There is still a requirement for that. It has reduced down, but it will be part, I think, of business going forwards. We are back to these sort of meetings, but I think people question far more now the necessity of that quick meeting or flying into London just to catch up or whatever for a day. So I think that sort of changes. As a company, what's Marriott doing? Well, we've very proudly signed up to Race to Zero. But we also have some really big targets that we need to achieve by 2025. Well into double-digit sort of reductions on our waste, utilities, all of that side of it. We also look at sort of global programs. I can give you some examples of that. This year, we are moving over to larger toiletry units in our rooms, pump action ones. And doing away with the individual little toiletries that are around. That's going to save us conservatively around about 500 million little plastic bottles a year that we're going to waste sites otherwise. We do things like mobile key. So you can now check into our rooms using your phone. You don't need a plastic key any longer. So there's sort of some of the, we've planted something around over 400,000 trees around the world with various projects that we're involved in. We do work incredibly closely with our suppliers. One of the benefits of such a big company is we can have some very big suppliers, and they part of the whole deal, if you like, is what their role is, what they're doing around sustainability and the environment. And I think it was interesting what Minister Scully said a few minutes ago. About customers becoming far more demanding and, wanting it in contracts of business. We see increasingly now with big business, big corporate companies, when we're quoting for business, they will ask us very specifically what are our aims, what are we doing around the environment, sustainability. So it's great to be held to that as well. And we again, pass that down the line to our suppliers. I think as a company, again, we have enormous opportunities around design and build. We're designing, building hotels every day of the year somewhere in the world. So we can take advantage of that to make sure they're as efficient as they can be. But it's also probably a big challenge for our industry because most of our hotels, this hotel, for example, is 35 years Marriott, was a hotel before that. So we don't have the benefits of sort of new technology and all of that. We have equipment that we have to replace. So if I talk more, I guess, about this hotel now and what we're doing, as opposed to just Marriott. So here, as we replace equipment, we very much look at how we can be far more environmentally friendly. An example this year we'll replace the heater unit over the front door entrance. That will save us 50% of the cost, the utility usage rather, that we had prior to that. We have just completed the refurbishment. In that refurbishment, again, we take the opportunity to ensure things like our showers have the latest technology, comply to the latest requirements in terms of the amount of water that they issue. We also belong to a great organisation called Green Key, which you may or may not be aware of. It's a global organisation which is committed to the environment and improving businesses. So we have an audit, which is a very challenging audit. It takes the best part of the day, where we get audited on everything from the flow in our showers, which is measured, through to just our policies and what our thoughts are in terms of our suppliers. It's a very exhaustive audit, and I was delighted that we were one of the first hotels to achieve that pre-pandemic. We've just been assessed again, and we've passed again. But the other really good thing about it is it's a constant improvement. So to retain the standard, we have to do at least 2 new areas of improvement that can be audited every year, or we lose the standard. So it holds us to an account. It also gives us very good ideas of things we haven't thought of what we can do. So there's sort of things. I think the other side to touch on probably just briefly is around the customer. And I think a lot of it, what we do is culture with our people as well. So, for example, we have all of these we gave to our associates. We gave it back in 2018, I think it was. So they have their own cup for teas, coffees, all that. We no longer need plastic cups in our restaurant. We're about to buy a new set because with the pandemic, we've got a lot of new people that have joined us. But little things like that. The food today. We work with the organisers, and if we look to the menu, we do normally a very nice yoghurt with a berry compote. English rhubarb is absolutely in season at the moment. It's beautiful rhubarb. It's grown just down the road. So we changed the berry compote to rhubarb compote. The apple juice you saw this morning is English apple juice. So we're really aware of where we can, working with local suppliers, and that whole sort of commitment in terms of where food comes to us. But we also have to be mindful of our customers. We are a hospitality business, so we have to offer the choice. And I think our role is very much to sort of encourage our customers. And again, Minister Scurry touched on it. There is a real change we see coming through with menu requirements, what people want and everything. There's far more awareness of what we're doing than there was probably 5-6 years ago when we did things. And there was quite a lot of indifference to what we did. Maybe we didn't get our message across well. I think nowadays people understand that plastic bottles are not going to be in the rooms, in the in the leisure centre, all those sorts of things. Our packaging is a lot less. So to me, a lot of what we do is little things in hotels about culture, with our own people to understand it, and with our customers to take on board what they want and provide that. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ian. Hayley, I'll move over to you. John Lewis Partnership is a national brand with over 30 department stores across the country. How do geographical/area-specific sustainability targets or council ambitions and regulations impact the sustainable practices in and around your stores?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the question. Again, welcome everyone this morning. So I suppose, firstly, to reflect on the sort of estate that John Lewis Partnership has. So yeah, we've got over 30 John Lewis stores. We've also got all of the Waitrose branches. We've got hotels. We've got all the distribution, and we've got our farm as well that goes alongside that. So I suppose the challenge is having some ambitions that absolutely can be applied throughout throughout the whole of the estate, really. So what we've got is we've got our sort of organisational ambitions around net zero. So we've got our ambition to be net zero in our operations by 2035, which broadly, I suppose it's ahead of the national targets. But then when you start looking at a little bit more on a local level, there's a lot of councils have declared climate emergencies with 2030 targets. So I feel like with our 2035 target, we're sort of really supporting local areas in sort of driving carbon emissions down. Separate to carbon emissions, we do have other targets as well around energy efficiency, sort of absolute energy reduction, and also around sort of decarbonising our fleet, which is sort of, I suppose, a big issue for retailers like ourselves. When we start thinking about how we're actually going to achieve these targets, and this is where it sort of links in a little bit more to the local level, is really it's around doing trials. So a lot of what we're doing at the moment is trialling different technologies. So for example, at the moment we're doing a e-commerce trial with EV vehicles in St Catherine's Dock. The idea being, if that is successful, hopefully that's something we can roll out. And I suppose that's where when we start to look at, well, how do we roll it out? How do we look at prioritising these different projects? We start to look at the local areas. So things like if there are air quality management areas and things like that sort of start to take into, we can start to take them into account in terms of our decision-making process. I think more so on a sort of local level, we've a lot of our stores have got freedom, I suppose, when we start thinking about local level and ambitions and targets. Our branches have freedom to work on projects within the community which are sort of got ESG values, and absolutely a lot of the time those sort of branch managers will come to us in the central team and ask for support. So we really do support sort of the local areas and local councils as well as having sort of our national ambitions. So that's all I was going to sort of sum up.
Perfect. No, great summary. Thanks for that, Hayley. Finally, Fiona, if you could tell us about what the Good Store is, and of course the charity groundwork, and perhaps give us a little bit of background as to where you're opening and why.
Yeah. So hi, we're about to open the Good Store. The Good Store is a sustainable department store. It's got the range of a department store. So we have departments including accessories, fashion, kids, books, tech, household, health and beauty, furniture, homewares. But all of the products that are on sale have been sourced to be more sustainable than a standard option, and to give consumers a route into sustainability and to think about sustainability in all of its different types. The way that we've been thinking about sustainability is roughly in 3 buckets. The first bucket is reuse and refurb, so products being used for what they were always intended to be used for. So furniture that has been refurbished, second-hand clothes, second-hand books, tech that's been refurbished. We've got amazing array of brands within that type of sustainability who have come in to showcase what they're doing. Includes established retailers in clothing who have second-hand clothing, so Trade is an established charity retailer. But we also have within our furniture, our own furniture from our own social reuse projects, as well as we're really excited to have, if you've seen The Repair Shop on BBC, it's fronted by Jay Blades. Jay's furniture company is his background, and who we're going to be his only London stockist. So we've got a range of who we're working with within reuse and refurb. Within new products, which is our second bucket, we have different approaches to more sustainable versions of new products. So that might be products that are made out of waste. So there are some guys who had some coffee shops across London. They had created a lot of coffee grounds from that. They've now created a very successful health and beauty range, lotions made out of coffee grounds, Dragon's Den success story. They're called Upcircle. So that's an example of the kind of new products that we have. We also have a fantastic company called Elvis & Cressy who make leather goods from ex-Fire Brigade hose. And a wonderful social enterprise from East London called Bean London who make, again, high-end bags from Burberry's offcuts. So we've got an amazing array of quality within that category as well. Within our new products, we also have products which enable you to have less use of plastic, so refill options that can be delivered to your door. So deodorant, which comes in a metal canister, instead of buying a plastic tube every few weeks, metal canister with a refill comes in a cardboard box, which is a company called Wild. So we've got great ranges within each category of those products which are enabling you to divest yourself of plastics and other things. And then we also have products which are more sustainably sourced. So where possible, we are avoiding cotton and going for bamboo. It's not an industry that's hugely developed in the UK at the moment, and something that we hope to see, that we hope to be able to support with the Good Store. And then our third bucket is services and support. We'll be putting on events and talks. We will be enabling people to interact with sustainability. It's about creating community within the brands that we are working with, but also with our customers and more widely. And it's also about being able to refer people out to other services, giving people access to information. As a charity, and I'll come on to groundwork in a minute, we give advice on energy and water saving in the home. And so we'll be providing that kind of information in store as well. The idea is that it is a good shopping experience with these elements of sustainability layered in. You can just come and shop, but you can also engage much more, finding out about the background to the brands, the background to the store as a whole, and what we're doing. It's being launched by Groundwork, who I've worked with for a number of years. We are a community and economic regeneration charity focused on the environment. So we use the environment as a driver for community and economic regeneration. That means we do a huge array of things. We work with young people who have been involved, sadly, in gangs and help support them out of that, which has got very little to do with the environment, although it is about those people's environment. We support people into the green economy, and we have various different models. Kickstart, you will probably know, we've used that kind of model for a very long time, supporting people who are furthest from the workplace into environmental jobs and creating that pathway. We also work in communities, and we have landscape architects who specialise in climate adaptation, as well as kind of community teams that support communities in a whole raft of ways. We do a lot of work with refugee communities at the moment, to help them become kind of integrated within their community and with each other to create kind of strong social networks. But we also do a lot about resource efficiency. And that is where this has come from. We do a lot around fuel poverty. We work with Thames Water and going to 70,000 homes a year to advise people on water reduction use alongside being moved onto a smart meter. But we also have a lot around reuse. So we have a number of social reuse models. We have one of the best white goods repair workshops in the country. We're based at one of the municipal waste sites that serves Westminster as well as 4 other boroughs. We literally pull white goods out of the waste stream, and we train people in white goods repair on waged employment programs. And we get those white goods back out into use. You'll be able to see a couple in the store. We're not going to be having a white goods showroom, I'm afraid, in Mayfair, but you'll be able to access those products online. And we also have social reuse programs based on creating closed loops within housing estates to not only deal with fly tipping and taking away bulky items for free. It costs a lot for a council to do that. But also we support regeneration by refurbishing and selling furniture within the estates so that people can access low-cost furniture, which is, when you move house, if you're decanted, it costs quite a lot of money still. And if you don't have very much, you end up with no furniture. So we try and support that mechanism. The point of the goods store is to support the shift in the high street. What does the future high street look like? What is the future of kind of experiential retail, about what are you accessing? We know that there is a consumer demand, and it's been mentioned a few times today, around sustainability. We did our own market research, which very strongly showed a desire for more access to more sustainable options, but interestingly across the sustainability adoption curve, from people who are already out there and doing this right the way through to what the market research company called the laggards, people who haven't even started. Even those people were interested in coming to our store because they are interested in accessing and knowing how to get into this world, because it is complicated. We know that we're going to have to continue to evolve. We're very excited about the products that we're launching with, but we know that we will be evolving as we go, as we expand into new stores. We're launching very excitingly on South Molton Street, right next to Bond Street Tube, with partner Grosvenor Estates, who is as a charity, one of our corporate partners, introduced by the new West End companies. Thank you very much. So we'll be launching there next month. We're very excited to get open. But we are ambitious with this, and we are looking to move to other sites. And so we're already talking to some landlords and excited to see where we can go, to be able to just take everyone with us, to support that journey. As a charity, Groundwork does a lot of infrastructure work and support work to enable people to make the choices that they want to make. And this is just the same as we would normally do.
Fantastic project. Very much look forward to visiting. Next, is it when roughly, can you say when it's opening? Are you able to?
I'm just going to say next month.
Next month, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Building issues. I'm sure many of you will be aware.
Excellent. Very interesting comments. I think one of the things that strikes me, listening also to Sir Peter Rogers saying the retail sector is responsible for 215 million tonnes of carbon. That's a lot of catching up to do in this sector. I'm just wondering, actually, the panel's got any thoughts around, is it customers who are driving us to push in this direction? Are we already going there automatically, or is there are we being kind of led by customers wanting to work towards sustainability? I know, Greg, you were mentioning you'd done some research, that IKEA had done research on general customer values around climate change.
Yeah, and the reason People and Planet Positive is both one of our values and one of our 3 roads is because not just customers, but our co-workers demand it of us and want to be part of the journey to 2030 and beyond as well. And at IKEA, I think about 7 years ago, we started up a community very much based around behaviour change, enabling and inspiring the many to lead a more healthy and sustainable life at home. This is called Live Largom. It means just the right amount, not too much, not too little. And kind of 6 years later, we now have this incredible community, both online and in our stores. You can partake in a whole raft of different workshops with people in your local area as well. And what we've seen is individuals who have an interest, they're probably a little confused around some of the solutions on the really broad spectrum of sustainability. They can delve into specific areas, such as energy efficiency at the moment, or moving to renewables, looking at upcycling, looking at repair and reuse, and a whole host of other areas through the whole year Live Largom programme. They can then go on to learn from each other as part of a peer-to-peer community. And if you were to walk into one of our stores, say walk into the Greenwich store as an example, the first thing you're going to see is a whole raft of different people who have taken part. There are customers who have taken part in that Live Largom programme. And as you walk throughout the store, they're going to be the ones that are telling you the solutions that are available to you to live a more healthy and sustainable life at home. And they're absolutely key, not just the Live Largon participants, but our co-workers and customers are absolutely key to both identifying the solutions, from the small solutions and the fairly easy solutions that we can all take at home, to the much broader, bigger, impactful, holistic solutions that we need radical collaboration to work on. And I think on that perspective, we've heard a lot about the race to zero, and that's where we've been compelled to be a founding member of the British Retail Consortium's Climate Action Roadmap, moving the whole retail sector to net zero by 2040, and working with a whole raft of different retailers on that journey, both sharing and learning together. And we're really keen to do that on a more local level, I think, with the new West End company as well. So yes, very much driven and asked constantly to accelerate, but also it's where we get our inspiration and many of our ideas from, as you'll see in all of our stores. Those customers, those Live Largon participants guiding you around the store and very much part of the experience as well.
That's really encouraging to hear, really encouraging to hear. And Ian, what about from your perspective? Do you find it's been consumer driven, or is it very much a Marriott perspective? You know, even I think it's fascinating to hear, even on a micro level, the 50% saving on the heater. You know, how did this stuff come about? Was it just realising that there were certain inefficiencies that could be worked on, or were consumers asking, were they demanding that improvements were made?
I think it's a bit of all of that. I mean, certainly as a company, yeah, we've bought into this big time, and we actually have, let's say, very specific targets. You know, I have to commit a specific amount of my capital investment this year into projects that will show a reduction in waste consumption or whatever. But I think, you know, to me, the really big one is really around sort of public opinion, how it's changed. And I can give a couple of examples on that I've sort of mentioned briefly beforehand. So years ago, probably 6-7 years ago, we had little plastic bottles in our bedrooms of water. We had plastic everywhere you went, you know, a 5-star hotel, little plastic bottles of water, and everyone loved them and all of that. And we decided that we would change that. We wanted to do away with a lot of the plastic. We put into our leisure, our gym, for example, a lovely water cooler. Beautiful, chilled water. It wasn't just still either, it was sparkling, it was great. We put that into our bedrooms. We brought in our own bottles, our water, you know, really, really good. And probably best to say it didn't go down particularly well. It was a sort of the perception, I think, wasn't understood why we were doing it. It's probably seen more as if I'm being blunt, well, that you're trying to save money or something like that. It's still the same, you know, there's bigger choice, more water and all that.
Yeah.
So we got through it. Now, no one even queries it. I think if we'd sat here today with plastic bottles of water, if you'd gone in the, you know, because also people have the other big change is now a lot of people walk around with their own water bottles, which, to be fair, you know, we haven't really thought through maybe our way as well as we should have done. Yeah. But a real change on that. You know, we're changing, as I say, with our shampoos and all that in our bedrooms, and the little bottles to the big bottles. We tried to do that again. I did it in a different company to Marriott, actually, many years ago. And again, it just didn't work. You know, the customers saw it as being, and the product was great, and all of that. It was just seen, though, it was just not the right thing. Everyone liked their little bottles to take away and all. Yeah. Now, we don't anticipate really any issues around it at all. And then, so I think our customers do drive us, and that's absolutely great. We're a customer-led industry.
Yeah.
And more, and I think it's across generations as well. The thing I find interesting is when I talk to my kids, or my grown-up kids as they are now, you know, they're really passionate about it, and I learn from them a lot. You know, a lot of things I think you have to learn that you don't know. I mean, talking today to a couple of people this morning, you know, before we sat down, some fascinating sort of ideas out there that I didn't really know anything about at all. So I think we learn a lot. Yeah. And I learn a lot from our people. You know, we have within the hotel a team, what we call the GS Grosvenor Square Eco Warriors. And it's a committee of our associates who really passionately believe in doing things differently here and constantly come up with ideas. And it's great to sit and listen. You know, the cup was their idea. They said, why are we got plastic cups for all of our associates? You know, we shouldn't have plastic cups. And they're like, no, you know, why have we got plastic straws? We don't need. So I think, you know, it's just that perception across all areas, really, customer as well as our own people, that's helping drive this change, and the change that I've seen in the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think we're probably in in more of a challenge now with the cost of living crisis, or certainly changes, but we need to make sure that momentum is maintained and we don't sort of go back to in the direction which we were heading before. So it's very important to keep that pressure on, which is great. Hayley, any thoughts from a John Lewis perspective in terms of the customer? Obviously being a partnership, it already is in good stead in the way that it's formed.
So I suppose similar to what everyone else has said, that I would say that a lot of it is being driven by consumers. And I think that consumers look to John Lewis as an ethical brand. They expect that we're doing the right thing. So I think that we're always having to look ahead of that to see, well, what's next? What else can we be doing to push and advance? I think, as you touched on as well, the fact that we're a partnership, I'd say that as employees, as partners within the business, we're all wanting to be pushing the business in the right direction as well. So I think there is a real sort of swell of sort of ambition within the partnership to really be pushing in the right direction across the whole piece of things. I suppose my view is very much looking at the built environment, but also looking at the products we provide to customers, looking at, I suppose, the whole shopping experience and making sure that it's ethical and we're doing the right thing. I think absolutely consumers are driving it, but I think we've also got the added layer of the partners as well, also driving that ambition.
Fantastic. And Fiona, I guess you're coming from the other perspective in that you're kind of educating as much as anything else customers, because that's your raison d'etre. That's the reason you exist, right?
Yeah, we don't have any customers yet.
Once you open.
So this is, I've already mentioned our market research. I guess we came at it from the other direction, because we were, we go out around kind of awareness and enabling people to take charge of their own sustainability. So, when we're doing our fuel poverty visits, that might be focused on helping an individual reduce the cost of their energy. So we might be looking at, providing the fuel vouchers and kind of grants and checking their tariffs and that kind of thing. But it's also enabling them to take charge of their energy use and understanding their energy use in their homes. So I'm probably not alone in not properly understanding how my thermostat works. So we educate. I need to get one of our green doctors around to teach me. So we educate people on how to use the thermostat and how to, what the impact is of changing your washing machine down by 10 degrees. And in terms of, that's particularly focused on kind of the economics of it. So we're used to kind of going out and trying to talk to people about it. What I guess almost we're kind of catching up on is the fact that people want to talk to us about it, because there has definitely been a shift. Ideas that we put forward and tried to pursue, earlier, say in the last decade, we struggled to get traction with. But the shift is phenomenal in terms of what's happening in terms of public opinion, in terms of our partners. Kind of using the environment as a driver of community and economic generation couldn't be more on the zeitgeist than it is at the moment, which is fantastic to see. Hopefully, like all charities, hopefully one day we won't need to exist. So, we're kind of, that does seem to be happening, but it is why we did the market research, because, are we in our own bubble? In where we think this is a great thing to be telling people and doing, but actually checking that actually does work with real people. And so it's why we went out and we actually kind of made sure we did a proper representative sample through an established organisation to make sure that we actually could test it with the customer. And that has informed kind of, some of what we've done since. And we will be working with our customers. We want feedback about people's experience with the products, about what bits of people's lives they're struggling with to achieve sustainability. So how can we kind of find a way of responding to that through the store? That kind of interaction with customers, absolutely key.
The acceleration in this space is really heartening. I think it's certainly, I mean, even being in a forum like this a few years ago probably wouldn't have happened. So, I commend the new West End companies and others in taking this approach and realising that it's an area that we need to really be thinking about closely, and how we can maintain this momentum and acceleration. I'd love to take a couple of questions from the floor, actually, if there's anyone who has any comments or questions, please make yourself known now.
Buildings are an enormous source of problem. Planning authorities have a great deal of interest in heritage, which often adds real problems in terms of retrofitting for benefit going forward. I'm particularly interested in anybody who can give us a good example of where that can be cracked.
We're going into an old building that's been occupied by one occupier for a very long time. And and going into it, we've taken the view that we'll keep everything that is there that we can keep. So we're actually making very little change to to even things as simple as, what shelves are already in the wall. Because why, if it's a perfectly good shelf, we don't need to, I have noticed that I haven't updated the branding with you, so, but we've been really carefully thinking about the brand. I don't need to worry too much about what shelf there is. I'm going to keep a shelf if I can keep a shelf. Where we do need to put in more things, we are, for instance, working with a fit-out company who specialise in doing fit-out using reused materials. So that's a combination. We've got some of the fit-out is going to be from so as a house just around the corner within Mayfair that has been sadly completely gutted, but that does mean that there's a whole load of joists and floorboards that were put in the 19th century, that some of those are going to be coming in to create some of our furniture in the store. Scaffold planks, it's a classic, the scaffold plank, but of course all public projects require construction companies to use new scaffold planks for health and safety at work. So there's a huge, there's a whole huge wastage. That's the why so many people use scaffold planks. But also with working with a major department store who's not represented today around taking wastage from their store. So if they've got shelving and other items that we can use in store, we're kind of just setting that up with them and just taking the first load of things from them to be able to do our fit out. So there's, I know you were talking more about kind of the building as a structure rather than about kind of necessarily the fit out. But that's kind of the way that we've been kind of approaching that element of it. There's some longer term plans for the building as a whole.
The fit outs is an interesting point, really, isn't it? I mean, it's something traditionally in retail which has been so fluid, but so little attention has been paid to the actual furniture and all the different elements which go in and are often end up in landfill. So I was just wondering if anyone else has any thoughts or comments on general fit outs for stores.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And from an IKEA perspective, and in every single one of our stores, we have something called a circular hub. Depending on how you choose to enter or exit the store, it's either one of the first things you see or it's often one of the last. And we're integrating this into the whole store and online at the moment. Mm-hmm. This is where we employ over 400 people across the UK and Ireland to recover products, both products that come back from customers, products that may have been damaged along the way. So very similar, it's how do we take that circular mindset that exists in most of our stores today in terms of retrofitting? How do we look at making the most out of the materials that are already there? How do we also then bring into account our climate positive ambitions, where I think we've heard a lot of retailers already hitting the 100% renewable electricity. So how do we turn our sites then to renewable heating and cooling and the transformation away from gas? Do we have an example of a heritage building to date where it's been done? No, but we're certainly going through the process and partway through that journey at the moment. So it's taking that existing mindset and that existing value and putting it to the building, and where there are challenges, we have a process called kraftsamla. In Swedish, it's togetherness. How do we bring the right people together to overcome that challenge? And very much going through that at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I think what's probably clear is that there needs to be more emphasis, or certainly more facilitative environment for the changes, particularly with listed buildings, when we're looking at retrofitting and all the energy savings that need to be implemented to allow for these changes to be brought in, whilst obviously maintaining the aesthetic. So there probably, I suspect, needs to be a bit of reform happening in that area, but we are certainly moving towards that. Just wondering in terms of future trends of retail and hospitality that can affect sustainable shopping. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments on where we're heading, or interesting innovations and ideas that are happening?
I think we're constantly into innovation, as we've said. We are customer-led, and I think if I look at things, like menus, like we do banquets and events, a real sort of change there. I can go back to when you did banquets, and there was maybe one vegetarian option or something like that, and there's very, very much a sort of small number now. If I look at the dinners we do, there's an enormous range there of expectations, and without doubt, more and more people moving towards a healthier sort of menu. Yeah. And I think, as I say, customers, I've mentioned a few little things, they will continue. I think there's massive things there. It's just that I think someone else mentioned on the panel here, you know, your customers sort of drive you, and they have an expectation of a brand of what you're going to do, and that you're going to be responsible and think it through. It certainly, and again, in terms of travel, I think, you know, travel will continue, but people will question a little bit more. If they really need to travel, they will blend business and travel, and it'll sort of be a match of that, and maybe making more of a travel destination than they have in the past.
Yeah. I think partly with travel as well. Obviously, it's a massive area which affects all of us, and you know, unfortunately, there are few alternatives, and so often I wonder whether if we could articulate the messaging clearly around what can be done in terms of offsetting, and perhaps actually helping to bring the actual quantitative data to life in a way. I know that Google and Skyscanner have just agreed recently with a group called Travelist around being able to see a measurable index around what the flights can equate to, and then I think if everyone therefore knows what that calculates, they can then make their own carbon offsetting, or even potentially do it directly in the hotel or the venue or the shop where they're visiting. So I think there's a lot that can be done in that area, but it's an exciting space. Greg, were you saying?
Yeah, no, a lot of our shops are areas where people can come and meet, learn, share and shop. And there's also food offered there as well. I think the iconic IKEA meatball was mentioned earlier on. And we introduced quite some time ago veggie balls as well for those who are obviously vegetarian. But the really interesting area has been the rise of the plant ball. So it's cheaper than a meatball. It's only 3% of the climate footprint of a meatball as well. But the main thing it's there for is for those individuals who often come into the store and say, there's no way I'm ever going to give up meat. And they're often the ones that first of all go and test the plant ball. And it's been amazing to see the number of customers who haven't gone back. So I think the introduction of a whole range of alternative foods, either locally sourced or looking at plant alternatives, and how you can inspire those who probably aren't coming to IKEA to try plant-based foods for the first time. You can introduce that into the experience as well. But the participation element as well, within our circular hubs, offering solutions to our customers and allowing that peer-to-peer network for customers to be able to share learnings with each other and with us as well, has become very, very much kind of one of the mainstays, I think, of the overall retail experience, and something that I think is only going to grow as we start to really see the transformation across society towards a circular economy and towards net zero.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a very fitting end to end on plant balls, and I look forward to tucking into the sustainably sourced rhubarb compote rather than a berry compote. But if you could all just give a round of applause for our wonderful panel. Thank you.